My name is Dr. Layla Osman. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I've spent 11 years helping people untangle the worst architecture of their minds. And every patient I have ever treated has dreamed of the same white room with me standing in the corner of it, watching them sleep. It began the way most strange things begin, quietly and disguised as a coincidence. Patient 47 was a man named Marcus, mid-40s, referred for generalized anxiety. In our third session, unprompted, he described a recurring dream. A white room, he said. Perfectly white. No doors, no windows. Just a humming light overhead and the faint smell of lavender. I noted it. I moved on. 2 weeks later, a new Intaka 19-year-old university student named Priya referred for panic disorder. In our second session, she brought up a dream from childhood. A white room, bright light, the smell of lavender. My pen stopped moving. Is there anyone else in the room? I asked. She thought about it. A woman, she said. In the corner, I can never see her face. But she's watching me, and I don't feel afraid. I just feel... observed. I told myself it was archetypal imagery. Jung would have called it the shadow the watcher, as a universal symbol of the unconscious. I wrote it in my notes and closed the file, but I did not sleep well that night. By the time I reached patient 53, I'd stopped calling it a coincidence. Over 7 weeks, 6 different patients, different ages, backgrounds, diagnoses, and cities had each described the same dream. Same room, same light, same smell. The watcher in the corner. I am a scientist. I began eliminating variables. I checked my waiting room and found a lavender oil diffuser that my receptionist had been using since January. I removed it immediately. The dreams continued. I audited appointment windows, intake forms, social networks, and shared neighborhoods. No overlaps, no connections, nothing. I mapped every account on a whiteboard in my private office, and the pattern that emerged was like a face appearing in static. The watcher was wearing a dark blazer, a small silver pin on the lapel. I own one blazer dark navy. On the lapel, I wear a silver pin my mother gave me. The pin, which is no larger than a thumbnail, features a crescent and a star. I sat in my office for a very long time after I realized that I want to be honest about what this period did to me. I began sleeping on the surface aware, always, that the darkness behind my eyelids was occupied. I began to doubt my own recollection. Had I planted the image somehow? I went back through 6 months of session recordings and reviewed them over 3 weeks of evenings. I found nothing. But in patient 47's third session, I found something else. A 41-second pause, which my notes described as a patient reflecting, quiet moment. During that gap, faint enough to require audio isolation software, there was a sound, a low, subsonic hum, the same frequency I'd been imagining at the edge of sleep for weeks. I checked every session in which a patient had described the white room. Every single one had an unmarked pause between 40 and 45 seconds. Everyone contained that same ambient hum, buried beneath the silence. I listed possible explanations in my journal: that nightfac interference, electrical artifacts, building resonance neat, and numbered, the way I was trained. Then I closed the journal and did not open it for 9 days. The dream came on a Thursday. I had fallen asleep on my sofa, and then I was in the white room. I need to be clear. The experience was not like a dream. It was inhabited. The corners were true right angles. The light was steady, even, and complete. The smell of lavender was overwhelming. I was standing in the corner. I was the watcher. Each of my patients appeared in sequence: Marcus, Priya. The others each lying at the center of the room, AH dreaming. And I stood and watched and felt something I had spent years training out of my clinical self. A deep, ancient sense of responsibility. Not professional. Older than that. Like a shepherd. Like a mother. Then a woman I didn't recognize appeared. Perhaps 60, with gray-streaked hair, expression of absolute calm. She was not sleeping. She was sitting upright, looking directly at me. "You're the new one," she said. "The new what?" I asked. "Watcha?" she said. "The last one stood there for 30 years before you." I asked who the last one was. She tilted her head with something almost like sympathy. "Your first therapist," she said. "Did you never wonder why you went into this field?" I woke at 3:42 a.m. and thought about Dr. Hasna Aziz, who had been my therapist from 17 to 22, who had helped me survive the years after my father's accident, who had retired in 2018 and who I was realizing for the first time I had never once tried to contact again. I called her. The next morning, she answered on the third ring. When I stopped mid-sentence, unable to explain why I was calling, she said, "Layla, how long have you been seeing the room?" She told me that the ones drawn to this specific work, the listening, the holding of other minds, some of them carry a permeability. There is a thinning of the boundary between their inner lives and the professional lives they maintain. She had noticed the patterns. The pauses dot the hum. Every patient in her practice for the last 11 years that had the same dream. And toward the end, she was no longer standing in the corner. She was in the center, lying down, dreaming. And the watcher, she described the one standing in the corner, watching her sleep, was wearing a dark blazer and a small silver pin. Months later, I emailed her former colleague to ask about her. He responded within hours. Dr. Hasna Aziz passed away in 2019. 3 years before I called her. I have no explanation that satisfies me. I hold several, rotate them in the light, and look for flaws. But one thing I believe with certainty is this: nothing touches our lives without God's knowledge. Everything happens according to His will. And maybe some questions are not meant to be answered only. Carried, I still go to work. I still listen. Some nights, I remain in the white room, and I no longer resist its weight. But twice this past month, I have woken with the certainty that I was no longer standing in the corner when I woke, that I was moving toward the center, that somewhere in an office I cannot name, there is a watcher I have never met standing, very still, in a room that smells of lavender, watching me sleep. I've started keeping a new notebook. Not for patients, for myself. On the first page, I wrote one line. If you are reading this, you are already in the room, and I genuinely do not know whether I wrote that for the next therapist or for myself.